Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lavoie. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Antonio Caridad, who's currently Senior Director of Partner Revenue Operations and Strategy at LogicMonitor. And what I love about Antonio is he's really the leading voice on all things partner ops and revenue strategy, as you're going to see in today's conversation. He's anti-fluff. He has real systems thinking. So today we're going to talk about the infrastructure that actually makes revenue possible. He's got some polarizing, sharp opinions that we're going to dig into, as we always do onto the show. But yeah, ultimately, super excited to have you on the show with us. So welcome, Antonio.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that intro. I don't know that I'm the leading voice. I try my best to be helpful and to provide good advice and not add noise to all the noise that we have around us. But yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Amazing. This is long overdue, so I can't wait to get this live. But to set the stage, we start every interview with what we call the Fast Five segment. So these are just like appetizer, bite-sized questions, give you an opportunity to warm up and give the audience a chance to get to know you a bit better. You ready for that? Just first thing that comes to mind.
Ready.
All right, let's go. First question. What's more dangerous, bad data or no data?
Bad data. I mean, no data. I think no data slows you down. Bad data makes you take the wrong decisions. Easy.
Yeah, I love that. We're gonna talk a lot about bad data and poor data hygiene a lot today. Okay, cool. Next one's a bit of a spicy one. If you could delete one metric from partnerships forever, which is to say partnership teams, leaders, ICs, they stop tracking and obsessing over this one metric, which one are you deleting and purging?
The biggest vanity metric of them all, partner signed. It's completely useless and gets you in trouble 90% of the time, because the next question is, okay, how many are producing? And then you're like,
less than 20%
of those. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That is a constant theme on this show of just like how big a vanity metric that is. And no one on your leadership team cares about how many partners you have, right? So
Nobody.
We'll talk a lot about that today as well. Okay, next one for you. What is one warning label, so to speak, on your personal operating style? So just as you think about it, for me, if I was to focus on my own partner ops kind of warning label, it would be if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist, so to speak, right? For how I manage my teams, which is to say, like, sure, you can have your Google Sheets and stuff, but at the end of the day, when it comes to reporting and cross-functional collaboration, it needs to be in the CRM so that we're all staring at the same system of record. So what is your one warning label, which, you know, is something that everyone needs to be mindful of?
I think you just hit one that is really prevalent and really important. So to not say the same thing, I'm going to go with beware of the loudest and neediest partners in your ecosystem, because more often than not, those tend to be not great producers. They're not keeping their heads down, and all they do is just burn through resources. And so more than anything, you have to ruthlessly prioritize. And so beware of those very loud and needy partners.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. I love that big time. All right, next one for you. Let's just say you get to fix one thing instantly. I wave a magic wand, voila, it is fixed. Attribution, partner selection, or internal alignment. And you only get to pick one. I know they're all important, but which one are you picking?
Attribution, partner selection, or internal alignment. Internal alignment, kind of like the bad data question. If you don't have internal alignment, you're dead in the water. You're dead before you start. The other things you can kind of live with some things, and again, like the other things slow you down. But without internal alignment, you have nowhere to go. Period.
Yeah. I like it. I can tell you're a big leading domino kind of guy, which I am as well, which is to say, it's like, look, so many things can be important, but what's the one thing at the front of the line that once it's tipped, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but you got to get that lead domino right. And if you do, everything falls into line. Same thing with good data. Same thing with internal alignment. I would argue those are leading domino type things.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Second last one. What's the most overused phrase in partnerships right now? Obviously, like, how many logos you sign, we've already covered that. But what's a overused phrase right now in partnership that just gives you the ick when you see it on LinkedIn?
There's so many, but I think it's like we're building a world-class partner program. Everybody says it, and
What does that even mean?
95% of the time you land on like, oh, I have bronze, silver, and gold. if everybody has a world-class partner program.
Yeah, I hear that. It's totally. What does that even mean? Is it really world oriented or is it
Yeah,
just domestically oriented? That's okay. So yeah, there's a lot of buzzwords out
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then final bonus question, which we always ask all guests: what would Antonio be doing if partnerships wasn't a thing? You weren't in the business world. Money wasn't an object. Like truly, you're set for life. You could do whatever the hell you wanted. You're retired from the partnerships game. What are you doing?
That's a good question. And I've always said if I had had the talent to actually play professionally, I would have loved to play soccer.
Yeah.
Um, in the absence of that talent, I would have loved to be in sports advertising.
Mm, I love that. Well, I saw when I was
Yeah.
doing my LinkedIn creeping in preparation for this interview, I couldn't help but notice that you were the VP of the soccer. What was it? The soccer club at North Carolina. Is that right? You're like some.
Not for the whole university, for our for Kingdom Flagler Business School for our MBA program. I was one of the
Right.
VPs
Sorry, yeah.
of
So I
the
saw
team
that.
and captains of the team. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I was very jealous of that. Go Tar Heels.
Go
Cool.
Heels.
Go Heels. All right, cool. Well, look, we're going to get into the first segment now that we've got the training wheels off, which is always origin story. One thing that's cool about partnerships, as you know, we all have really wild kind of entry points for the most part into partnerships. So we like to start there. So for you, let's rewind because your path, certainly didn't start in partnerships. It started as an engineer, moved through telecom, and then into IBM and ecosystem. So my first question is what did that early engineering mindset teach you about systems and constraints that has really served you well in your partnerships career?
I think early in my career, even though I'm an engineer, I lived in that world between at the beginning between corporate finance and project management and engineering that I think allowed me to learn the lingo and speak of engineering teams, right? And it's something I do very well today, especially I don't handle tech partner programs anymore, but I used to. But I still work with engineering closely, and I'm able to translate sales, marketing, to engineering lingo, right? Whenever,
Yep.
especially
Yep.
in the ops side, whenever we have requirements and things like that, I can speak their lingo. I know how iterations work. I know how spikes work. I know how Scrum and Agile methodology works. And so, like, I think that prepared me very well to be able to be a bridge between different functional teams in an organization. So,
Love that. I think that's I love that kind of threading of the needle there on those unique skills. So then let's fast forward a bit. You get pulled into partnerships through IBM after a case competition. So I'm
mhm.
curious, at what point did you realize, this wasn't just a role, like partnerships is something that you could really see building a career in, like really being that lane that you want to stay in for a while. What moment did it crystallize for you like, wow, like what a cool job type, I can really see myself spending a number of years here.
It's a good question. And I think one of the things I always realized when I was in college studying telecom engineering is that I was not the prototypical engineer, heads down in the nitty gritty of it. I always liked the business side of things a
Yeah.
lot, right? Like I had interest in both sides. And I
Yep.
think for the very first time when I got that first my business school internship with IBM and then I started full time with it. I realized that this role gave me that, gave me a path to own the business side of things and handle kind of like my own little corporation inside of a bigger corporation. And at the
Right.
same time, still be involved in the nitty gritty of data and the nitty gritty of building systems and the nitty gritty of working with engineers. And then doing sales, doing marketing, doing all those things. So I think that like that clicked really fast. um can I say that immediately was like, oh, this is my thing, this is my jam? No, I grew into it, but I think very fast I did realize like this is a path that allows me to do a little bit of everything. Every day is not exactly the same. Every day we face different challenges and different levels. And I think that was it's the fact that it allowed me to get a very rounded kind of like profile, right?
Yeah. No, I thanks for sharing that. I resonate a lot with that. I think for me, one thing I loved was um, I don't get to just work within the confines of my own company, which could be interesting, but eventually you might get a little bored. I get to work with a
Hmm.
lot of other companies, the Shopifys, the HubSpots of the world. So it's like you're kind of like working for many companies, which gives you that
Hmm.
exposure. But then to your point, for me, coming from not an engineering background, from an academic background, I love that I kind of am quenching two parts of my brain, right? Like I'm quenching like the business side of the brain that is
Hmm.
interesting, but which is very people centric, data centric, high stake
Exactly.
centric. But then also the geeky side of my brain, where it's like close to product. You know what I mean? Like integration partnerships, especially, which you and I both cut our teeth in tech partnerships as well. So yeah, I think that resonates with me a ton.
I think you nail it there in the head, which is like I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
Like the bomb. I'm a nerd. I cannot deny the fact that I'm a nerd, but at the same time, I'm a very sociable person. I need the social interaction, and I thrive in that social interaction. And
Yep.
this job gives you both, right?
Totally. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
now let's talk
Yeah.
about the next piece, which is early mistakes. So this we ask every guest this, like, how did you get into partnerships? What were those key early stakes and key learnings? So for you, you said one of the mistakes was trying to please everyone and assuming all partners were equal. So like just walk us through that experience and then ultimately what did you learn through that and that you're able to kind of correct and kind of carry with you?
I mean, it ties into that warning that we talked about earlier in the fast questions, right? But it's yeah, it's trying at the beginning of my career. It's I listened a lot to those partners that are loud, that are needy, and you try to please everybody, and very fast you realize A, you get underwater fast. B, you burn through resources. C, you have a very long list of priorities that now it's like, oh, how the hell am I going to prioritize this? And so you start to, like later in my career, I learned the philosophy of ruthlessly prioritizing.
Right.
Um, and so I think that was it. It's the fact that when you try to please everybody, you lose sight of what the real North Star is, what the business outcomes that you're trying to drive it are, and what will provide the most impact. And you burn through resources. And when you try to claw yourself back into like, oh, this is what I was trying to accomplish most of all. These are the resources that I need to do this. At that point, you're underwater, and it's really hard to claw yourself back from that. And so, that was a lesson I learned. I learned fast. Um, and that I mean, I have to be honest, I still have to remind myself about like, hey, in the grand scheme of things, what are we trying to solve with this? What is the impact of this? Is in the grand, like, is this going to help everybody, or is it just a one-off case that, yeah, maybe that partner is gonna be a little bit pissed off at me, but the reality is like, hey, I have a bigger picture, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. I think that last part there, like the big picture, I think that's having an understanding of the big picture. I think calms you down and gives you the patience to zoom out and create a directionally productive path. I think some people are kind of born with those skills naturally, but I think it really comes down to experience. Like you need to get your butt whooped. You need to make mistakes earlier in your career. You're so zoomed in. I've got a quota monthly or quarterly. I've got to hit it, and it prevents you from really like zooming out. To use your example, so I made all the same mistakes that you had mentioned, and we know a lot of folks
mhm,
in the community as well. Okay,
mhm.
cool. Now let's get into the next segment, which is all about why most partnership teams don't produce, enough revenue or consistent revenue, I should say. And you've been consistent on
Yeah.
this and saying that, hey, look, partnerships don't fail because of strategy alone. It's really more about, the fact that they're not really running like a proper business unit. So the first question for you is, if partnerships were truly run like a business, what would most partner leaders have to admit that they're doing wrong today? Right? So it's like, hey, look, say you're advising a partner leader and they're just not producing the results. What are they going to have to admit to themselves that they're not doing correctly today in most cases?
I think we still have a lot of partner people out there that don't prioritize and this is a little bit self-serving. I might be a little bit subjective on this, but they don't prioritize the fundamentals of how everything has to be operated to execute properly, right? And they're so focused on, and they should, I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but like they're so focused on pipe gen and driving bookings or driving revenue and all that, that they completely forget like, hey, I need somebody running all of this behind the scenes. And if you don't have the proper architecture set up in your CRM, if you don't have the proper architecture set up to capture the right information and things, if you're not reporting, if you're not, if you don't have the processes and workflows and the partner experience and customer experience is suffering from that, guess what? You're not going to last too long because you're going to keep finding yourself in that corner office without data and let's pretend that you do have the data with broken processes that, yeah, maybe right here and there, you're getting a transaction here and there, but very fast, your partners are going to be fed up with the fact that your processes are broken. It's very hard to do business with you. Experience sucks and they're going to go away. And when they go away, a chunk of your TAM goes away because they have all those customer relationships that don't come back, right? So one of the
Yep.
things that I always say is partner experience drives customer experience, right?
100%. And we're going to dig into that in a bit. And I totally agree, to be clear, with everything you said there. Just to play devil's advocate, just to give to be fair to some cohorts of people where it's like, let's just say I say to you, "Oh, Antonio, I hear everything you're saying. I'm a leader of a partnerships team. Look, man, I'm early on. I get the importance of process, but like, I'm just trying to figure out who the heck we should be working with from a partner perspective. I got a couple PAMs and CAMs and ICs on my team. We're just trying to like get by, produce results, run as fast as we can. We don't have all of these resources in place, right? Like a little bit of it's excuse making, a little bit of it's real. Like, what would you say to someone, as coherent and rational as you can, who is like, look, I don't discount how important proper architecture, infrastructure, process is, but it's like, who's going to do that? When am I going to find time to do that? Right? Which is, in many cases, an excuse. How would you kind of like talk someone down off that ledge, so to speak?
That's a good question. And whenever I talk about this, I have this slide that talks about all the things that must happen for you to have proper fundamentals, operations, and a
Yeah.
strategy that is solidified. And you have to take a look at all of the things that must happen and all of the things that you don't have enough time in the day to do, or your PAMs, or your partner, or your
Yep.
or your team, right? And so I think the first and most important thing is understand that, yeah, your priorities revenue, your priorities pipeline to cover for that revenue, and for that's what's going to keep you in seat. But you, from day one, even if you don't have the headcount or the budget to have a dedicated ops person, you do need to find yourself in the office or in a meeting with your rev ops if your engine is mature enough, or with your sales ops person, and at
Yep.
least get dedicated time from somebody in their organization to at least at some point in the week. I'm not even going to say in the day, in the week, they're
Yep.
working on ensuring that everything is at least, even if it's with duct tape, it's working so that you're able to actually do your thing. Otherwise, you're going to get tied into a
Yep.
night job of you doing this yourself. And so, yeah, maybe
Yep.
at the beginning, you don't need a dedicated partner ops person, but
Sure.
you do need ops support. Absolutely.
100%. Totally agree. I think that's a great response. And then two things I'll add as well, and I'll get your reaction to before we move on. Like when you're like interviewing for a role, like you should be negotiating in good faith. Like, hey, look, it's going to be important for me to be able to showcase and impact and report up to you and across the leadership team. So I'm going to need I'm going to need a commitment from you that I'm going to have at least bare minimum resources, and
Hmm.
whether you can't provide me ops people, I'm technically sufficient, capable of getting into our CRM and building a basic level attribution system. So like I need
Hmm.
to know that within a month of me joining, I have an ability to literally track, right? So I can report. Otherwise, you're gonna have no idea how the hell I'm doing, and you might you might make a decision
Absolutely.
prematurely. So that's like before you even accept a job, you should be making sure of that. Otherwise, you could be setting yourself up for failure. But then if you're already in seat, to Antonio's point, if you can't do everything at the early stage, I get that, but the one thing you've got to get in place is tracking, right?
Hmm.
Like basic level tracking, like setting up some
Basic.
basic custom level properties in Salesforce or HubSpot, like partner specific properties. Like, was this, of all the deal sources, is there a partner source deal source, right? Or is it just ads outbound? marketplace, et cetera. Like you need to be able to track. Otherwise, how the hell will you even measure how you're doing and report across the org? So like that's where I would
Absolutely.
like drill down. Like bare minimum, you have to have that.
Absolutely. Like you need to think about the fact that, yeah, what's going to be and what's going to keep you in seat is that pipeline generation and the bookings and the revenue, because you're going to have targets. But if you
Yep.
can measure, if you can track that, guess what? You don't have anything to show for. Even if it's coming in, if you're not able to prove it, that like it's a non-starter.
Absolutely. Rob Morgenhart just published this book last week, in March of 2026. Basically, the partnerships operator manual for the AI era, and Rob had this great line in there where it was like, this is what happens for a lot of partnership leaders who don't do proper tracking reporting. Picture like this big leadership revenue update meeting. The marketing leader pulls up their CRM to show their data. The sales
Hmm.
leader pulls up the CRM to show their data. The
Hmm.
partnership leader pulls up 6 different tabs, Google Sheets, spreadsheets, all these other things to try to piece together what they did. The CRO nods, writes nothing down, and then the meeting just continues on. Which is to say that
Yeah,
like you just lose so much credibility, right? It's like, why are you
absolutely.
reporting in disparate systems? Can we even trust your data? We have to spend 20 minutes to fact check your data, right? So to Antonio's point, you have to have that in place from day one. There's no excuse, because otherwise, how
No
the hell are you
excuse.
supposed to report?
No excuse. You don't want to get into that situation where the sales leader on the opposite side of the table, or the marketing leader, is saying like, I don't trust your data because you're bringing it
Yeah.
from some other system that is
What
not
tools are
ours,
these?
or exactly our source of truth, which is a CRM. Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I'm glad we're on the same page. Okay, cool. Now we're getting into one of the juicier segments, the partner ops system. This is your tried and true 4+1. So let's get into this, because this is definitely
Mhm.
where you can really flex your stuff. So you've built this now famous 4+1 pillar framework. We've got systems, programs, metrics, enablement, all leading to partner experience, which I absolutely love. So walk
Mhm.
us through this, right? What does this actually look like inside a company's stack and weekly cadence?
Good question. So, in the programs pillar, that's where I consider that's where I pull in alignment, internal alignment, right? So making sure that there's alignment with your CMO, with your CRO, with your VPs of sales, with customer success, and so on and so forth, right? And from there, you can build like it's basically your strategy on how you're building an ecosystem. What kind of partners are you trying to attract and work with, and why? Having a proper IPP. And then making sure that you build the programs necessary to stand up that ecosystem and for it to become a flywheel, right? Recurrent.
Yep.
Then how are you going to operationalize that? That's where the systems come in. If you're early stage, most likely than not, you're going to have only your CRM, maybe another tool or so. Then you get into more mature stages where you might be incorporating uh, PRM. You might be incorporating account mapping tools like Crossbeam. You might be incorporating some of the new AI IPP tools that are
Yep.
starting to come out, and then intelligence around some of those things, right? But also it's your systems around forecasting. It's your systems, all the AI that you're incorporating in there. Then you have the metrics. How are you reporting? This is where you make or break things. How are you reporting? And it's not just like pipeline and bookings, right? It's getting into stage progression, deal velocity, funnel stages. You're getting into win rates. You're getting into CAC. You're getting into LTV. You're getting into all those things, right? And then finally, what fully brings in this in circle, all that strategy and all those fundamentals that you built, it's that enablement, ensuring that from an internal and external standpoint, from an internal, everybody understands what their what their piece of the puzzle is in the ecosystem. AEs know how they work with partners. CSMs know how they work life cycle with your partners or PSMs. Your solutions engineers are in lockstep with you working with partners as well. You have a service delivery program where you're working with delivery through partners for time to value, and then the external side, which is basically your partners on your partnership. What is what we do best? How do we co-sell? How do you resell? How do we do marketplaces together? How do we integrate together? How do we work together? And then I want to understand you. You want to understand me to ensure that whenever I'm not in the room, you're able to speak about us. And
Mm,
whenever you're not in the room, we're able to speak about us. Right. And so all of that makes or breaks the central pillar, which is partner experience. Partner experience is not something that you can just wake up one day and say, like, I'm going to build great partner experience.
mm,
What is that? But partner experience is a product of those other things. It's a product of your strategy. It's a product of your systems. It's a product of your metrics, and it's a product of
mm.
your enablement. When
Yeah.
one of these things is broken, when one of these things is crooked, um, it can potentially bring not only the house down, partner experience suffers. And as I said earlier, when partner experience suffers, the total addressable market that your partner is bringing you starts suffering, right? When a partner leaves, all those customers leave more likely than not. And
Yep.
so it's a pillar, or think about it less as a pillar, more as a beam
Yeah.
that is basically lying on top of all those pillars. Whenever a pillar falls or crumbles, that beam starts to get shaky, right? And at some point, all of that will come down. And so that's basically my 4+1 kind of methodology.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, first of all, I love it. Like, there's all this talk about like customer centricity, which I think is important. I like this partner centric approach where you're really anchoring everything around that. And I think a key takeaway for me is like how much back end stuff that you might necessarily see is so critical for like standing up a successful partnership. Like, it's not just you have a partner manager who's like really strong relationship wise and is even process oriented and can like support the key contacts on the other side. Like, that's obviously a part of the puzzle, but like you really need strong infrastructure and foundation. As a real example, tracking and metrics, to your point, there are so many otherwise really productive mutual partnerships that get underfunded and under resourced because the partner managers managing it aren't tracking enough and can't tell the story of how successful that partnership is. So like,
Exactly.
which is to say that it's like the full value being unlocked from that partnership is like the iceberg, but what's being communicated to the most senior leaders is the tip of the iceberg. And it's because they're not tracking enough. I've seen this time and time again. I've personally managed relationships and partnerships. I've had people on my team where it's like, my goodness, like it's clear as day there's impact at the customer level, at each company level, right? We should be investing more, but because you're not tracking things properly, you're not telling the story correctly, which isn't allowing you to fight for additional resources to accelerate growth. So I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that to me is a good example of how not having the right metrics and tracking, right, hurts the ability to improve the overall partner experience, because otherwise, if you were tracking properly, you would get even more buy-in and more resources to accelerate growth.
You hit the nail on the head. And an important thing to note is that I think you alluded to this, but it's like all of these things are interrelated. Like, I think there are companies
Right.
that struggle when they separate strategy and ops and enablement and they're siloed because then strategy decides, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then suddenly, like, they make it, they go and talk to ops, and ops is like, yeah, we cannot do that because our systems are not set up because we don't have budget for XYZ tool. And that's because you should have been in lockstep. And then, oh, you want to run this play. And we want to make sure that, hey, we're creating this new product. We want to make sure that our partners are up to speed in this and all of that. And then once again, you go and you don't have a way to track that, right? You enable the partner,
Exactly.
but it's not tied up. And it's like, okay, we enabled all of these partners. We got a bunch of engineers in a bunch of different rooms. What do we have to show for it? Oh, we're not tracking any of that. And your CRO is going to turn around and say like, so what about like, why should I let you do this again when I cannot see the ROI? In my head, I just hear you wasted time, effort, and resources.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So, okay. So now let's get real practical for those listening right now who are maybe at a company. Let's just say you're at a company around, 30 to 75 mil ARR, 30 to 100 mil, give or take. And let's just say you were dropped in there, Antonio, and you need to build, these key pillars from scratch, so to speak. What are the first few things you're putting in place? Like, obviously, I know you need more information to kind of like orient yourself, but like, of the pillars, the systems, the programs, the metrics, enablement, all leading to partner experience. If I just dropped you into your average Series B, Series C, B2B SaaS partner program that's already up and running, but like largely doesn't have these things figured out, Like, what are the first few things that you really want to make sure you put into place? If you could sequence them.
A good question. I think I start with who are we, right? What's our product market fit? Because that's going to dictate who's your ICP. And from your ICP, you can understand, okay, who are the partners that are working with these customers, right? So where I'm going, and I think you know where I'm going, is like, okay, I'm identifying my strategy and I'm understanding how I fit in the market, right?
Yep.
And with that, then I can start thinking and working with potential partners about like this is how we fit together and this is
Yep.
why it makes sense. From there, once you start baking that at the same time, you're working with your sales ops person, with your rev ops person to ensure that you have the bare minimum in your CRM.
Yep.
You're able to have an object for partners. You're able to have an object inside of opportunities to track within an opportunity who's the partner, if they're bringing the opportunity or they're just influencing, what kind of partner is that, and so on and so forth. The bare
Yep.
minimum that will allow you to then be able to report on it, be able to report pipe generation, be able to report open pipe at any point that you get into a forecasting call with your CRO, and then you're able to report bookings. As part of that, you also need to make sure that there's alignment, right? That you're not fighting your AEs, internally you're not fighting your CSMs, that everybody is in lockstep and they understand the value of working with a partner because faster deals, bigger deals,
Yeah.
bigger win, like better win rates. And then finally, once you have all of that, and once you have that strategy and story, and you've identified the partners, is making sure that when you go into a partnership, there's maybe you're too small at that point, but you have a regular cadence. You have a regular cadence to check in for it to not just become a paper partnership or a
Yep.
vanity metric like we discussed earlier, that you're ensuring that you have a plan. These are the goals that we're trying to accomplish. These are the targets. Maybe again, you're too small to get into MOUs. You're too small to get into commitments, but you're tracking and you're regularly having a cadence with that partner, doing multi-threading with your team to get deeper into that partnership, and then making sure that they understand what the partnership is about. Why are we working together? Because ultimately they also have to stand up in front of their CRO and
Yep.
explain why they're wasting a bunch of time, or not wasting, but why they're spending a bunch of time with Antonio Caridad working on this. What do you have to show for it, right? And so that is part of the enablement. That is part of the strategy. So that then you can get into account mapping sessions and all that. Because at this point, you're too small to have that kind of tooling. So
Got
does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally does. I think that's super helpful because this is definitely a question we get asked a ton in the community is, hey, I did just get dropped in. I just took this job. Nothing's really built out. If I had $1 for every time I heard nothing's built out, like literally, I wouldn't have to be doing this right now. I'd just be chilling on the beach somewhere because I hear it all the time. So I'm glad you answered that question. But as a follow-up question, and I know it's impossible to like give one universal answer for this, but like, is there like a signal for when a company, but more importantly, the partner program is at a mature enough point where you can justify a RevOps resource? I have really like basically, which is to say, it's like let's just say there's like 10 stages of a partner program evolution. Like 10 out of 10 is like you're the Microsofts of the world. 1 out of 10 is like pure stage startup. Like, is there like a point or a signal or a trigger where it's like, oh, things are getting mature enough and complex enough where we should probably have like a dedicated headcount specific for partner ops? I have some thoughts, but I want to hear you go first because I also get this question a lot of like, hey, I'm a new partnership leader. Okay, I've proved out, I've been hustling, I've been scrappy, I've got a couple good wins. I think I'm starting to get a bit more credibility, a bit more budgets opened up for the next cycle, but I have to make a bet. Do I hire another quota carrying partner manager IC, or do I or partner marketing or partner enablement or partner ops? Like, is there a good rule of thumb or signal that perhaps it is the right time to bring in that precious resource?
Yeah, I think I don't know that there's a size, right? I don't know that there's team size or a revenue
No,
size,
sure.
but I think the signals are when you're starting to get truly deep into attribution battles, that is one
Yeah,
thing. When you're
fair.
starting to
That's a good one.
get in, yeah, when you're starting to get into places where like very basic Salesforce or HubSpot reporting is just not cutting it for you, because we know that Salesforce reporting is very limited. When you start having to now, okay, I need better and much more robust reporting. And I'm not even getting into predictive things, right? But I need Power BI, or I need something a little bit deeper, Tableau or things like that. That's another signal. When you're starting to get into different types of motions, so you're not only doing resale, you're not only doing
Right. Right.
uh
Multi-motion programs.
exactly. You're not only doing delivery, you're not, when you're starting to get into like, now I have VARs, now I have MSPs, now I have GSIs, like, all of those are different beasts, which will require, most likely, maybe you'll start with a single program, but eventually
Yep.
you'll most likely have to adapt to the different routes and the different types. I think that's where, because now your day is starting to take you away from that. I want 80% of your time focused on being with a partner, on driving pipeline, and uncovering opportunities, uncovering white space, expansions, cross sales, all of that. Now you're starting to leave that 80% behind, and now you're spending maybe 60%. The rest, you're spending it in
Yep.
operations world. I think that's where you have to start thinking, okay, I need a fully dedicated headcount if I want, because that, in my opinion, when properly implemented and when properly brought in, it can be a lot more powerful than bringing another quota carrying person,
100%.
because the gains are exponential, and it's the fact that you're going to liberate all of this time for your team to focus on what you hired them for.
100%. I think that last line was an absolute clincher, which was exactly my thoughts as well. It's like, short-term pain versus long-term gain. Like short-term pain is like, okay, maybe you don't have another person in seat who's like purely focused on pipeline, but you do have someone in a partner ops role focused on creating leverage, for
Hmm.
exponential gain in the future. So I loved everything about what you said there. I think that was a great segment. And one key takeaway there is like, okay, maybe there's not a rule of thumb, but it's like, hey, look, if you're like the de facto leader of the department and you basically feel like your job is turning into partner ops, it's probably a good signal that you need to bring someone in so you don't fully
Hmm.
convert. Okay,
Hmm.
so one last question on this, because this is the final one that I get asked a ton as well, is
Yeah.
okay, sure, I have conviction now that it's time to bring in a headcount for partner ops. And there is some budget, but I'm getting pushback for this particular role because leadership and finance, they're like, well, how do we quantify the ROI of this type of role, so to speak? So I'd love to hear from you. How do you justify and like, or I should say, showcase the impact? Which is to say this. Let's just say this. Like, say you're pitching me. I'm the CFO or whoever, and you're pitching me on hiring like one partner ops person, and I say to you, hey Antonio, okay, sure. But how will I know in 1 year's time that this person did a bang up job? Like what will be true 1 year from now, right? That wouldn't be true if we didn't hire this person. Like what's the impact on the business? How will it be felt? How can we measure it? Because I hear this a lot, right? With like quota carrying partner managers, relatively straightforward. Did you generate pipeline? Did you move pipeline? Did you close pipeline? Right? Even for partner
Yeah.
marketing, you can measure things like MQLs, et cetera, et cetera. Enablement's a little bit tricky, but for partner ops, point blank question, how would you know 6 to 12 months into their tenure whether or not they're making a true impact, and how can that be measured?
Good question, and it's not a simple question to answer, and I think different people might have different answers. But I think one of the simplest ways to look at this is efficiency gains, right? From a perspective of when this person joined, if they make updates to the partner program, how is that impacting us?
Yep.
Has our Pareto principle gotten a little bit better, and not only 20% generating 80% of a revenue? It's maybe we're getting into a 30-70 or a 40-50 or a 40-60 split, right? Where more
Yep.
partners become generators,
Productive.
because now they're incentivized, in the proper experience, etc. is there. Our win rates are going up. Like, are they identifying issues within our pipeline, within funnel, that is hurting us from doing this, right? Have they one of the things that we help is, are you able to identify partners that maybe on paper look fantastic, but in
Yep.
reality they're not? Partners that, you don't like, they bring you opportunities, but you don't realize that on the back end, these partners are not keeping the customers, are not retaining the customers long enough, or are churning, or are demanding so much discount that actually they're bad partners, right? In the front end, pipeline looks fantastic, but in the
Yep.
back end, you realize that it's all cost because they're not retaining the customers. They are commanding such a big discount, that the ROI of those customers in the LTV is not there, and so on and so forth. So these are the kind of efficiencies that you should be able to find, but also in the sense of ensuring that your cadence with the rest of the go-to-market engine becomes better. That
Mm-hmm.
friction is going
100%.
away. Those rules of engagement are
Yes.
better. You're actually working as a team. Um,
Yep.
that's part of it. What else? I mean,
Those are
there's
good.
more things that I could add, but
No, that's
maybe
great.
that for the time that we have, maybe that's enough.
No, no, that's certainly plenty, and I think it's real. I think the last piece you said, look, is the heartburn now largely gone? Which is, how do I, as a revenue leader, whether I'm the CRO, the CFO, or whoever, how easy is it for me to, on my own, go find all of the necessary and requisite data surrounding the partnership org and team? I should be able to go get that squeaky clean, no problems, and I should trust the data. Like, that is real, right? It's hard to quantify that, but that's real. If the leadership team feels like, wow, every time I need any amount of data from the partnership team, I just know Antonio and his team, they've just
It's
got
there.
that dialed in. Like, that is
Hmm.
real. That's not
Hmm.
fluffy. But then the other thing I'll say as well, it's more practical on the KPI side, is like, look, if I hire a supposed superstar partner ops person and we already have an existing partner program, after 1 year, our average lead to deal ratio should improve. Our average
Hmm.
deal to close one should improve. Our average time spent in each stage should improve. Like, especially if they're focused on those things. So, like, I think there are real KPIs that you should be able to measure, and they're not necessarily in client-facing roles or even partner-facing roles, but they're there to create real leverage. They're first help us see the data. So, like, oh, look at that. For every lead you get, only 40% of them convert to deals. Well, that's a huge leaky bucket. Can you help us through
Hmm.
system automation and process improve those KPIs? So I think, like, the hygiene of it all and the improved accessibility and trustworthiness of the data is a real artifact and benefit. But then beyond that, those actual KPIs buttressing it all, I think that is something that you can, if anyone listening, you're trying to justify a headcount for partner ops, you can say, hey, look, I'm putting my credibility on the line. These are the KPIs that after 6 to 12 months should definitively improve if this person pans out. Does that kind of translate with you, Antonio?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's. I mean, you eloquently said it better than I do, but it's efficiency gains, right? And
Yeah,
then if you want to measure it externally, if that partner ops person is focused on partner experience, that partner experience should get better, which
totally.
means that not only your good partnerships are going to get bigger and more recurrent, it means that you might actually get to expand, as we said, into more partners producing, right? So you can measure it both ways. Again, it's very subjective because one leader might have a different opinion than others, and a partner
Yep.
operations person, depending on who they are and what role and what company they are, their purview might be bigger or smaller into different areas. But ultimately, it comes down to efficiency gains, and it comes down to all those KPIs getting better. Absolutely.
100%. I love that. Okay, cool. Now we're going to get into the stretch on our last 10 minutes. We're going to go kind of rapid fire, distinct questions that I'm personally really excited to geek out about, and I'm really excited to hear your answer. These will be somewhat different categories. So this first one is up on attribution, right? Which, look, we could have a whole hour on attribution. It's critical to get right. It's difficult to get a universally accepted definition that the rest of your org accepts on finance and the CRO and the sales team. So, like, attribution is absolutely critical. So my first question for you is, where does attribution break down in the real world for a lot of these partner programs, and how do you fix it without blowing up trust with sales?
where does it break down? I think it breaks down in terms of alignment. I think if
Yeah.
everybody is on board that you're going to be working as one team, and you understand that if you work as one team, things flow better, revenue gets like deals get bigger, deals go faster. Um, that alignment is critical. If other teams like marketing and your BDR team, for example, or sales don't want to fix this, they're like it's mine, 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 mine.
Yeah.
It's a hard battle to fight.
Yep.
But attribution is one of those things that I don't know that I've met anybody that has truly solved attribution
Yeah.
in like an ideal world. Everybody has their own flavors of like, we've solved it this way and this way. But as long as you're able to get to a point where you all agree on these are the rules, like the rules is
Yes.
like, we're going to measure these touch points. Over time, once you have the historicals, you're going to be able to weigh those touch points and say, like, this is more important than this. Like, a customer looking at a website is less important than a partner bringing a customer to a webinar, right? Or putting
Yep.
a booth in a trade show is more important than um, having a customer call. Like, but
Yep.
once you get into those things, and then you have your own rules about, hey, when a customer looks at our website, we're only gonna count that as valid within 60 days or within six
Yeah.
months. Or a partner talked to a customer 3 years ago. Does that count? No, not really. That was 3 years ago, right? As long as everybody is on board and you have these rules and you're able to measure these things, I think you're in a good path to solving attribution. And then again, once you get into that linear multi-touch attribution where you're measuring all these points, and at the beginning you say like everything is the same, and because everything is the same, we're going to give
Yeah.
credit to maybe marketing and partner for this, and because of that,
Yep.
basically our targets are going to be a little bit inflated because it's like a Venn diagram. There's a little bit
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
overlap, and we expect that of these target of pipeline, this chunk is attributed to both.
Yep.
Um, as long as everybody is okay with that and everybody understands why there's overlap and all that, you should be in a good path. And then you can get into like bringing tools that can eventually get you into a U-shaped and W-shaped and algorithmic. But now
Yep.
for that, you need to have clean data and you need to have the historicals to be able to actually give proper weighting to the different touch points that lead you to that much more robust and elevated kind of attribution model, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, totally. I think a couple key takeaways there is like, look, we said this earlier, like you got to track everything. If your company isn't set up right now to like handle proper attribution for partnerships, you can't make excuses. You have to track every single thing. I don't care if you have it
Mm-hmm.
on a piece of paper physically on your desk. You need to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that when it comes time to like quarterly commission calculation, like you're getting all of your
DRM.
deals factored in. But another key theme as well is, especially early on, is like they need to educate the right people at your company on like literally how does partnerships bring in deals. I remember at one of the
Mm-hmm.
last companies when I was hired to build a partner program for the first time. They had sales ops and marketing ops, and they had a really strong like overall attribution model, but they had no idea how the heck it worked for partnerships. So I actually had to spend a surprising amount of time educating them on like, here's how we bring deals in, like referrals. Like sometimes they come from through email, and then we've got to like log them correctly. Or sometimes it's a UTM link that's on a partner's list, partner page that we get listed for, or sometimes they submit a lead through a partner portal as an example. Like, and they had, it's not a fault of theirs, they weren't familiar with this. So we had to like I didn't have partner ops at the time, so I had to enable my own sales ops team to refactor how we handle attribution, because they're like, oh, I didn't even know what the heck partner referral meant, so to speak. So don't discount early on, like don't assume, is the key takeaway, that like if you're joining a company, they understand how partnership motions work. They're familiar with the traditional models. Ads, very easy and very clean. Outbound, super easy, super clean, because it's all trackable through these UTM links. So you have to
Yeah.
educate before you can actually build the systems together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as part of the process that you're going to go through, it's okay to make assumptions at the beginning. Like you're going to
Totally.
run into cases where, hey, a partner talked to a customer about our product. Fine. And then immediately after that call, the customer came and looked at your website. And so your first touch point of that customer is going to look like, oh, the customer looked at the website. But hey, maybe a few hours or a couple of days after, the partner actually registers the deal. You need to get to a point of assuming with your team is like, hey guys, whenever this happens, we're going to make an assumption that this was because of the partner. Right. And so technically the first touch point is the
Yep.
partner telling the customer to look at the website. Right. And so it's okay to make assumptions at the beginning. You're gonna get better with time, but you need to
Yeah.
start somewhere.
100%. 100%. Cool. Just to wrap up, we have one final two-parter, and of course, we couldn't have an interview without talking about AI. And look, everyone's talking about it. You've taken some really grounded, even polarizing stances on this, which I love. So, first question for you is, look, everyone is trying to throw AI at partnerships. Point blank question, Antonio: where is it actually useful today?
Good question. I mean, I'm gonna start with the fact that you cannot just throw AI at a problem and think it's going to be fixed,
Right.
especially if it's a bad data problem. Bad inputs, bad outputs at scale with AI. AI is just going to exacerbate your issues. But
100%.
I think where it's useful is, I mean, there's a couple of instances. There's AI tools out there that are able to capture all of the signals and all of your interactions with partners, with customers, and basically populate your CRM. You're taking manual efforts
Yep.
away from your AEs, from your partner managers, because the AI, whatever tool it is, or a combination of tools, is listening to your recordings, is looking at your emails, it's connected to all of your interactions, and basically it's capturing. That takes a lot of the manual things away, and a lot of the potential human error away from the equation, right? So that's one example. Another example is if you have a robust engine and let's pretend that you have relatively good data where
Yep.
you are getting into scoring partners based on revenue, based on win rates, based on verticals, based on deal size, etc. AI being able to identify and recommend partners based on a different set of parameters whenever
Totally.
a deal comes in. So a deal comes in for healthcare, and AI says, hey, you have a fantastic partner that is an expert in healthcare.
Yes.
They are top three in win rates. Their deal size is 2.5x larger than our normal average size deal size. This is a prime partner for you to bring into this deal,
Yep.
right? That is a perfect use of AI that is actually useful and it's not noise.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was just coaching a 200 million AR HR tech vendor today. I was just coaching their team on some cool AI workflows and that like partner prioritization type workflow. I think that's a fantastic use case because if AI is set up to be like pervasively kind of listening throughout the org, listening to sales deals, client calls, etc., and then it's also paired by being connected with like your partner data, which could be in your CRM, could be in tools like Crossbeam. It can just
Hmm.
proactively say, "Hey, look, hey AE, you might not know it. You're in this 50K deal right now that doesn't have a next activity date. Last activity date is greater than 30 days. It has these three surrounding partners. This one in particular just closed that deal 2 months ago. Probably has relevant insights. Like just this like intelligence layer, so to speak. But the key is you need the right data, but it needs to be connected to all of those different disparate data sources. So I think that's a great way to close out. Final question
Yep.
for you, Antonio, to wrap up. Let's just say someone is not in a partner ops role, but is listening and they're like, you know what, that actually sounds pretty interesting. I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the world, so to speak, for all of our millions of listeners, so to speak. Why do you believe partner ops is such a great potential career path, whether you're already in partnerships and this is like you pivoting or breaking it into it altogether? Because I am on record saying, I think in this new AI era, of all the partnership type role types, I think partner ops is going to be in one of the highest demands because you can create so much leverage, right, with lesser headcount. That's just my take. So I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the world. Why do you believe this beautiful profession should be something to be considered in the future?
It's a good question. The reality is that, as we all know, I'm not gonna be the guy that says outbound is dead and all of that, like just you
Yeah.
see a lot of people saying, but outbound is struggling, and it's evolving. Inbound is struggling and it's evolving, right? Why? Because there's a multitude and an oversaturation of signals in the market. And so one of the things that people are realizing is that for you to break through right now, it's all about trust and systems of trust, right? And who holds the trust of customers? Other companies, not necessarily you. And so you need to work with them to be able to tap into that trust. And as partner teams evolve, as partner teams grow, as companies realize that this is the bet that they want to bet on, this is the horse that they want to bet on, in order to, as we were talking about earlier, in order to create the efficiencies, to build the, no, let's start from the beginning, to build the fundamentals and scale this motion and scale this strategy and then build the efficiencies. This is a role that's critical. Like, I don't know that there's any robust and mature company in the industry that doesn't have a RevOps team now. And
100%.
just a few years ago, RevOps was not a thing, right? RevOps started a few years ago, and they're like, well, what is RevOps? RevOps is now like central and critical to the go-to-market engine. Partner ops is
100%.
part of that, right? And partner ops is becoming a very important part of that RevOps engine. And
Mm,
and you are in the driver's seat to what you just said. You're in the driver's seat to create those efficiencies. You're in the driver's seat to build, and then
yeah.
you're in the driver's seat to become this new, maybe it's not new anymore, but this term in the industry now, which is a go-to-market engineer, and be at the front
Yep.
center. You're the Formula One driver of that AI Formula One car,
Yeah. I
right?
mean that.
It's you get to do that, you get to build that, you get to be that guy.
I mean that I don't have anything else to add to that. That is a mic drop of all mic drops. But yeah, I think like what like a security team is to an engineering team, where it's like critical, right? Like I see like partner ops and rev ops becoming that critical to the revenue org as a whole. But you
Mhm.
did it much better justice. But look, we're at time, Antonio. Can't thank you enough. I can't wait to get this episode live. And yeah, thank you so much for dropping your wisdom.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Chris. Thank you for indulging and listening to my incessant ranting. And I hope that this is helpful for a few folks out there, especially for a lot of folks. And you can always find me
Yes.
around. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Somehow Antonio finds time to share his wisdom despite a very hectic job and family life. But look, thank you, Antonio, and thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard, feel free to subscribe to the Partnership Mastermind podcast. Until next week, thanks so much.
thank you, Chris.